Thank you. Okay.
Oh, okay,
Good.
there it goes.
Good evening, everyone. Beautiful, beautiful Tuesday. Good evening. Thank you for joining this week's Transformation Tuesday. So, thank you all for your flexibility. This evening, so excited to announce that the speaker, our long sought after speaker for this
Oh
week,
yeah. How,
um,
how many how many events and Zooms in the making? Like 2 months?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, this is Transformation Tuesday. This is week 148, and our topic this evening, can holistic thinking change the imbalance in your life? And
Mm.
I am super pleased to announce our speaker this evening is, okay, trying to set up my tripod here. Brother Psussenes Bay, Brooklyn resident. Very glad to have him here. He is a yogi and a massage therapist, and he is just all about healing mind, body, and spirit. So, Brother Bay, if you would just like to introduce yourself, and
Yes. One
yes,
second.
thank you.
Okay, cool. I'm back. All right.
Okay.
Ah, so I'm gonna switch my camera. Hold on. Um, how do okay, great. I think I can see myself. Can you guys still see me? 'Cause I'm like changing
Yes,
stuff on my.
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I make myself dominant, so I'm just gonna push over here. Okay. Hopefully that does something. Um, I'm still okay, right?
Yes, you're
All right, cool.
still
So,
okay.
uh, oh,
Um, yes, so feel free
to
to,
start,
yes.
uh, Islam, peace. My name is Psussenes Bay. I'm a holistic doctor of yoga therapy. I have been practicing since maybe 2006. And as far as like starting my healing journey with also working on people. I have a massage therapy, traditional massage therapy background, but I also have studied under Ayurvedic practitioners, acupuncturists, and I've been through technically 4 different yoga teacher trainings, but I've 2 different certifications. And I've also worked in a hospital, which was one of my shifting points into starting to view the eclectic vision of what holistic medicine really is. And is very holistic medicine, if I can say it. I actually refer to holistic medicine as kind of the holistic arts, because I feel like in this day and age, holistic medicine can't be replicated. It can only be learned. And in order to truly practice holistic medicine, you have to learn as an individual and or in a way that you can, bundle up a philosophy and a series of other things. But even after all the schooling that you might do, books you might read, lectures you might attend, at the end of the day, you still need to view things from a holistic lens. So try not to talk too fast and yammer on and try to lose people. But in a nutshell, the reason why I myself decided to, even though I had all these different trainings over the years, I was working corporate to support myself while I was doing a lot of these things as my passionate extracurricular artistic endeavors, of studying, going to lectures and listening to people, attending teacher trainings, even getting treatments from different holistic practitioners, and from everything from osteopaths, or manipulative osteopaths, which are a little bit different than traditional osteopaths. Um, and osteopaths are more well known in Europe than they are in the States. But that being said, um, receiving treatments of various different types, going through my own trials and tribulations of healing my own body, and coming across the nuances of understanding the past. And the first place that I really wanted to understand the past was through, I guess you could say, trying to help my family. Um, and that kind of started in the lieu of seeing my mother pass away at a young age, seeing different family members, the effects of the crack epidemic on different family members. Um, and my mom had passed away from cancer. My brother, he later died in 2005 from HIV. And then as I went along, like there was something in me that would understand that I couldn't help in the moment, see and experience the pain, but still is very level-headed about like somewhat that something needed to be done. And I kind of kept pushing forward. Luckily, I discovered art, dance, poetry, philosophy, and things like that at a young age. So it kind of kept me mentally and emotionally afloat. But throughout my development, I don't think it was like it was a course thing, or going through my own spiritual course, if you will, of understanding that Mother Nature has something to give, but I think I used to view that content as very abstract. Like there was, like you had to go to the Amazon or like to the jungles of Africa before we could get there. Um, and then what I eventually understood is that one is not to be a little bit conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of covered up history. But of course, this is just the byproduct of war. Um, but in this covered up history, that one of the main things that was really hidden away from people is health information. How do people be in touch with themselves enough to not get sick? But and this is actually this could actually go back towards not only just the reason why we have the cancer rates and the rates of diabetes and all the other things that we have, in obesity and other things like that, as far as like actual diseases or ailments. But what it actually looks like on the other end is a lot of the mental health issues, a lot of the disharmony that we have in our families, the impulsive decisions that like we as humans, but also particularly melanated people, in impoverished situations that we perpetuate. I mean, outside of the fact that people have bred us into this kind of philosophy, by like social conditioning, but why can't one generation save the next generation? Say, oh, hey, I get it now. I'm going to take you out of this toxic behavior. And I realized that one of the reasons why was we not only did we stop depending on Mother Nature and we started depending on mankind, but even the people who were controlling us started to depend on mankind more than they started to depend on Mother Nature. And and then capitalism got in the mix. But and this is all more to say that the more that I went down this quest of trying to study and live in a holistic way of thought, the more that I understood that you had to basically go back to ground zero, and that you had to like basically demystify literature and books and even religion and traditional teachings and rituals, and started to look at like why there was a reason that people did something. And I call this study spiritual science, looking at the science of spirituality and trying to look at, and basically in a small phrasing to be able to sum that up: as above, so below; as within, so without. It's an old esoteric teaching, but the one of the main things it's referring to is that there is a science to everything, and we're all connected essentially. No matter what you do, no matter what skin tone you have, or how many different regions of the world that your ancestors may have come from to amalgamate and make you, um, essentially, we only have our connection to source. And through our connection through source, we're able to connect to each other. And there's basically no connecting without source. And any time that something, typically, in my opinion, feels fake, feels inauthentic, it's because it's lacking in source. And some people might describe this as love, but I feel like the word love in Western terms has been very tainted, in my opinion. We tie it to Disney or HBO or any type of big film company. And as sweet as moments will be, if we go just 150 years ago and we look at what our ancestors are doing, like they're only 150 years, we would almost think that they're not necessarily savage, but very harsh or blunt. But the reality is that was their version of love, because there was no one else's ideas to cover up reality. It was like it would be a situation somewhere on the planet where someone was experiencing something harsher, very real, or like, if someone said lamb chops, you knew that they were talking about a lamb. You knew what a lamb looked like, as opposed to the way that people consume meat now. And we have come up with all these names about, what the type of food is, but we disconnect it from the animal that's being slaughtered. And even though I'm a vegan raw foodist myself, and I eat cooked meals with a really big purpose, like to get energy or to satisfy an insatiable hunger or whatever, if I'm not on the go to like burn calories and other things like that. The main thing that I understood is that everybody has their own place in life, and the world will not change overnight. So there's no such thing as one absolute ideal. And it sounds like I'm, I guess you say, veering off, but what I'm really trying to get at is that within the limitations of how we've grown up, how we have learned to experience reality, there's always a very holistic, with a W and an H, a holistic way of looking at life. And if we can get back down to what our ancestors used to be able to access, then we can get back to a more natural way of life. And we can get back to it today. We don't have to move off grid and get a farm and start over. We can literally start to apply ourselves now and try to think about, is this the most natural way possible to achieve something? And the first contradiction that most people come into is that they say, well, I need a job, or I need light, electricity, or I need to drive my car, or I need to take the subway. And then they feel like if they can't change every single tier of opposition that might go against nature, then they're through with looking for opportunities to make the idea real. And the first thing that I always say when you want any type of improvement in your life is think about what it is that's limiting the process of growth. And the thing that I typically come to, and you can even break this down to the smallest concept of philosophy, and using philosophy to say, why are the Protestants and the Christians and the Lutherans and the Pentecostals and the Baptists and the Catholics, why are they all different? Why, even they all read the Bible, well, what's the point? And when you realize that it's philosophy and the person who was bringing forth a certain type of teaching during the age of Pisces, pre-2012, then you start to see that, oh yeah, that it's literally philosophy that's dictating everyone's version of reality. This being said, with using philosophy as your guiding principle, then you can find a more holistic way of life. But then people would say to themselves, like, okay, I get that you want to be more natural, you want to be more holistic, but how can this save us from something? Or why should I care? But when you look a little bit deeper inside and just say me, for instance, right now, at 38 years old, if I didn't take on a more holistic way of life, even blindly, because that's actually the first way that because we come in contact with the holistic way of life is through primal instinct, um, then I think I would be a completely different person. I definitely wouldn't be speaking here now. Who knows how many children I would have, where I would be living in the world. If I would even have came to New York. I've been in New York 12 years. I'm originally from Texas. And um, I I would be a completely different person if I didn't follow my holistic instinct. Um, and the reason why I say instinct or the primal instinct is because there's three brains um, inside of the human mind. And because they say humans have evolved from a variety of species and amoeba and primates and um, reptiles and all these other things, that basically we have these three brains that run on certain types of instincts. And thus, as a result, they produce certain types of neurochemicals from each one. But the three sections of the brain, or three brains, is your reptilian brain, which is your cold-blooded or primal instinct brain, where your fight or flight senses and your survival instincts really come from. There is the mammalian brain, like a mammal. So when it comes to mammalian brain, it's like where we are able to produce love and we think about doing things in groups, and we kind of seek friendship and other kindred things. And then there's the neocortex, which only the primate has. And I think another series of mammals have, I'm just going to say like maybe dolphins, but let's just say primates, i.e. monkeys, gorillas, things like that. But within these three brains, we're able to do certain things. The neocortex, the last one, is for thinking, building, critical thought. Okay, so whenever we have a primal instinct, we're using one of those three brains, and typically it's not the neocortex. It could just be even our need for, I'm not saying necessarily lust, but love, or to be cared for, to be intimate with somebody. Some would say that it's the reptilian brain that's leading us, but I would say it's more of a mix in between the reptilian brain and the neocortex. We are desiring to be close, especially when we feel like spiritually we're lacking in that type of thing, and so we go towards it. Our need for communities, kinship, to stay close to other people, like-minded individuals, especially as we get older. So that being said, our instincts are our best friend. And for me, the thing that I had to find out over the years is that my instincts were saving my life. I was born with asthma. I got rid of my asthma when I was 17, but literally through instinct of not wanting to have a wall in front of me of my health and my freedom of physical expression. Let's see. Oh, I used to have arthritis, and I actually came down with a series of ailments, right? And they were almost debilitating, but not really. Like I was functional enough because I hadn't really slowed down athletically since I was a kid, but I could still feel the pain on a daily basis. So I had arthritis, I had a knee injury, and a palm injury in the center of my hand, right here, actually. And it was only through a series of interactions over a course of time, watching a few documentaries, and having emotional shifts and why I was going to do things there, that I decided to take my life a little bit more seriously. And I didn't know where I was going, but I would say for about a year and a half, from maybe summer 2011 till spring of 2013, or maybe winter 2013, uh, that I got super serious about experiencing life, and I wanted to break the mold of the path that I was going down. So, like, my instincts had led me to somewhat also coming in line with intuition, but I started to see that there was a yearning inside of me to do something more than what the limitations that I had been faced with. And I said, what will it take in order to bring out of me a higher purpose, a something a little bit deeper? And the thing that I found was dissatisfaction first. And I felt like there was a lot of things that I had wanted to experience, and I felt like time was wasting with the way that I was living in a mundane, redundant cycle. So that took me from living in Texas to moving to New York to doing a second yoga teacher training to becoming invested into a variety of different arts communities in the city. And lo and behold, at the beginning of 2013, only after doing my second teacher training, my yoga teacher training, I got rid of my arthritis. And it was only really through the efforts during my yoga teacher training that I was able to get rid of it, because my diet didn't really change and I wasn't really paying attention. But whenever I had got into the second teacher training for this little 2.5, 3 month period, the first thing I said to myself is, and I was working full time, I was like, I can't get better until I get simple. Like, and I need simple things, and I want to eat healthy, and I don't know how, but I'm a little bit closer to than whenever I first started. So I was just basically having juices all the time, doing intermittent fasting by accident, doing 3 hours of yoga a day. And then next thing I know, boom, arthritis is gone, knee injuries are gone, palm injury that I had treated minorly in 2012, all of a sudden it just disappeared. And it was around that time that I started to take holistic medicine seriously. I started to take Western yoga and say, there's a lie somewhere. And then I said, I can't blame these European people who are the people who brought the stuff here. Really, they're people from secret society like Madame Blavatsky, but they have brought yoga to the States. And I said, whatever this isn't enough. Like, it's limited. I've paid, $7,000 for these teacher trainings. Something is telling me that there's a different correlation. There's a different story that no one's talking about. And I realized after like going down the path and starting listening to nothing but a lot of Indian gurus that that all of yoga that I was realizing was not only a lot more spiritual, but also a lot more technical physically. There's pranayam, there's asana, there's like the 8 limbs of yoga as far as the kriyas and other things like that, and then like reflective thought practices, dhyana, like meditation. There's a lot of different aspects, but over the years, I thought I was like kind of like put it aside because I didn't want to be very religious, and I just wanted to be very like in flow. And the thing that I saw was a very human thing at the end of the day. I was like, oh yeah, you're just people on the part of the planet with limited access to technology, way more larger population problem than we have here in the West. And some people were like, even though they were technical thinkers at the time with limited resources, were able to figure out this technology, which is, just a series of tools that you use to be able to do something that would normally not be able to be done, to cure the body, to help the body, to cultivate the body, to recirculate blood flow, and then to also figure out the science of what's actually happening within and also without. So this being said, The next part that I understood that needed to happen is that I needed to get serious about my place in the world. And it was only through, it was after, you know, doing all these different trainings and trying to leave corporate that I started to find my peace in helping others. And I wasn't even really looking for it in the same capacity as I understand how to do it now, by far. But the thing that I understood is that humanity was suffering. And I think if there's a place for you to experience how much humanity is suffering on a very minute level, it's New York. The main reason why I say that in a very light slash condescending way, I'm saying it, but I'm not saying it like, because I know that there's way more places in the world where suffering could be worse. But um, I say that because how multicultural that New York is and how close together it is. You can't escape people suffering the same way you can. You have to literally walk away. Like you can't just like, oh, this guy is like, you know, on fentanyl or on lean or something else. Like, you know, some kind of warped crossbred crossbred genetically version of cannabis or whatever it is, like, but they're in this deep state like a person who's on narcotics, and I don't know, like, how to help them, but two, what can I do about that? And it's when you get to see it up close and personal on a daily basis. I mean, if you live in whatever area, I mean, even when you don't try to live in an area where it is, you're still going to find it. You can go to a high-rise motel, high-rise hotel in the middle of Midtown, and you'll still find it. And I'm saying this more because of the reasoning of that. The thing that's missing for humanity is compassion and discipline. And I say both together. It's because discipline teaches people a lot. And compassion is more of a feeling and an instinct that we follow, and also a choice that we make. But humanity can't get farther until we get real. And until we remove the envelope of religion and start trying to get down to, because and the reason why I talk about religion is because it's kind of often a crutch. There's no difference between religion and a NYCHA building or being on WIC or welfare or, you know, public assistance or waiting for government tax government taxes on after filing your taxes with however many dependents, like, or waiting on what is it called, some kind of veteran loan, like, and not to say it in a way, because everybody has their own life journey and also a series of promises that were made to them by some kind of outside source. But the thing is, it's not that the things are bad, it's the dependency that typically causes a lot of the issues that we have today. And it's in my opinion, the removing the dependency is the most important part. So holistic thought requires independence. You have to be independent in thought, not independent in life experiences and things that are even incorporated into your life. It's more of like, what are you choosing to do every day? Are and will you do for self? Just because Western medicine has come up with some diagnosis doesn't mean that it's the end of your life. Like, look at the foods that you're consuming. Look at how stressed you are. Like, think about, like, if it was just 60 years before, 60, not even 100 years, would your parents be going through those same things? I mean, yeah, like, or even your grandparents, would they be going through the same things? And like for a woman at X time, or wherever she lived, wherever she was going through, like what would she be going through? And even though she might have a certain another level of hardship, how much independence would be reflected in her life that you don't have now? Um, yeah, and this is more to say, because it's not that the world is falling apart. It's actually the world's getting more transparent. It's getting more real. It's getting more um, connected. And I've understood that in order to connect with other people, you have to remove the veil that you're behind in order for them to see you. And the more authentic you are, the better that you're going to see how things connect. And to, like, as you go about life in this very authentic way, holistically, you're going to become closer and closer in your efforts to be living in a more natural way of life. Um, the foods that we consume, it's not that the food is bad, it's just that genetically our bodies don't know what to do with it because they're so processed. And then also, not only does it not know what to do with it, our ancestors didn't start or didn't consume those foods at such a high rate. And every generation you go back, they had less and less processed foods. Or like sometimes the only processed food was bread and rice, like, you know. And it's not to say that starches are bad. It's just that by the time that whenever things were a lot more holistic as far as a way of thinking and way of living, the Industrial Revolution had hit the world at the rate as it did. The thing that was most prevalent is people were very honest about how they thought about food, how food made them feel. They would go towards food as a form of substance, as opposed to a form of an emotional filler. And not that people wouldn't stress eat back then, but the ways that they would stress eat and the satisfaction they would get from certain things wasn't nearly the same. So many of the foods that we consume today naturally cause brain spikes just from them hitting our tongues, because they have so many chemicals and sugars on top of it, and oils and trans fats. And it's not that these things are the worst things in the world, because I've definitely eaten them before. Um, but what it is you have to ask yourself, is my behavior changing because I'm consuming certain types of foods? Like, is my gut health the same, or do I have chronic inflammation as a result of consuming certain types of foods? Are my children yelling at the top of their lungs because they're on a sugar-based diet where they're actually consuming way more sugar than anything else? Like, because I don't cook home cooked meals, or because, like, you know, of whatever. I mean, even consumption of technology. Like, I feel like I was having quite a few discussions over the last 2 or 3 weeks, really since summer, but about how kids have had their imaginations ripped away from them because we constantly feed them technology, and as a form of their entertainment, and as opposed to detoxifying from it and surrounding them with alternatives. Mass vaccinations, and it's like it's a little touchy, it might get flagged on Facebook, but the reality is, and I'm not even talking about the COVID vaccination, I'm talking about the MMR vaccination, I'm talking about various other ones. The Basically, it was around 1980, I would say 1990. I'm pretty sure it's 1990. So from 1990 on, it went from getting, or maybe it's 1987. Um, it went from getting 10 vaccinations um, before the age of 13, or however many, like as far as the childhood vaccinations to go to school and all that, all the way to like 30 or 40. And then today it's who knows how many. I guess you can look at those numbers and you just do a simple Google search. But the main reason why the vaccinations are bad, is not because if you gave adults those same vaccinations, now we've actually be able to fight off a lot of the stuff. Maybe get sick for a few weeks, or like, because there's too many and there's like all these like weird antibodies entering into the body, and then we'll be okay. And then, but if you give those to a child in the middle of their growth spurt, where their body and their brain is taking on so many different things, it causes a myriad of different ailments. I mean, some people talk about the autism thing. That's definitely a very real thing. But the other stuff that happens is, ADHD problems, bipolar issues, gut issues, not fibromyalgia, scoliosis. So many, like a child's body is so, I wouldn't say it's a blank slate, it's a solid foundation. And depending on the amount of nutrition inside of the body will determine on how they behave. And the thing is, there is no perfect diet, no maximum. There's no maximum, and this even goes for adults. There's no maximum way to consume nutrition to say, I'm at my perfect diet, there's no problems, boom, 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 right? But what there is a diet that is perfect for your lifestyle. And as your lifestyle changes, including your growth spurts, and lack of activity, if you're doing something for a certain number of years and you stop, then you should change your diet to reflect on what you're consuming. The main entities, or if you say it like that, who basically pay attention to this, animals. When animals even move from one climate to another, their diet will change, and they'll change their diet simply by sorry, I'm plugging my phone in. But they'll change their diet simply by, like, they just won't eat certain foods. They won't drink as much water, or they'll drink a lot of water because they're in a hotter climate, or because they're in a drier climate. They'll walk a lot more if you give them a chance. Like, animals are very, depending on where they live, their behaviors will go accordingly. But they have ways of relieving stress, getting rid of excess toxins, like eating grass and throwing up, anything. Like, they consider a lot of these things very natural. And humans are always like, they have a picture Disney perfect version of how animals should behave. And we have no idea how the majority of animals behave, especially something like snakes, owls, lizards, cats, dogs. Those are all carnivores. We try to treat them like they're herbivores, and we only feed them grain. But the reality is they need blood and like meat, because their ancestors, and even though we've tried to breed them to be smaller, pull them out of their original climates to try to make them pets, they still instinctually want those things, because in their genetics that they thrive off of that thing. They thrive off of that. So, with the concept even of well, I'm trying to put this in a layman's term, not to say in a condescending way, but just because I read a lot of medical literature, epigenetics. So within the concept of epigenetics, it kind of goes hand in hand in a counterpart, if you will, with the concept of the Eating Right for Your Blood Type book. And the main thing it talks about is the various blood types from around the world, and what the people, what ethnicities typically have a certain type of blood type, and based around that rarity or the prominence of it, you're the max. I mean, you're you have a rare blood type, so you're the universal receiver or the universal donor, or like you're you're more common than other blood types or whatever. So for instance, myself, I'm O, but I'm O negative. So I'm like the rare blood type that can give to any person. Ironically enough, I'm a healer. Um, but, but that being said, the main thing that I really want to get at here is with epigenetics, they're basically talking about genetically, you are more than likely gonna get sick from cancer or diabetes or whatever because your grandfather got sick, and cancer runs in your family, and there's always some type of cancer popping up. But what I really relate that to, when you look at the blood type diet, one of the real big concepts about the blood type diet is consumption. And they say, because Jamaicans were on this plot of land for X amount of years, they'll have these features. But people in Somalia will have another type of feature. People in the Congo, African Americans, or an African who has lived in Britain for the last, his family line has lived in Britain since for the last 200 years, since the 1800s. So, and they'll say your genetics typically does this, but because you've lived in a certain type of climate for a certain period of years, and you've been consuming certain types of nutrients predominantly more, you're not only you, but your kids will start to develop certain traits. And it would probably take any any kids that of mine, right? I don't have any kids, but you know, if I had kids and I didn't have kids with the Chinese woman, and like I had, let's say, kids with the African American woman or a Caribbean woman or someone from, you know, let's just say another African American woman because we're in the States, right? And I went to live in China. It would take maybe my children's children before rice would start to digest very easy. Every generation consuming a certain type of food from a certain climate, if everybody in that generational line ate that food, they would have more of an easier time to consume the food. But you know who typically, like in reverse, and it's like in rates that state, typically the people who get sick the most in the States on while traveling are foreigners, people who are not, they have no genetic lines connected to the United States. Why? One, because we have super poor quality food, like food lacking in certain types of nutrients, because we don't really, it doesn't matter if you're talking about chips with all the extra chemicals that we put here, but if you take Lay's, Fritos, Coca-Cola, whatever, in another country, they treat the products completely different. They have way less chemicals and there's higher standards of health. But even down to steak and like meatloaf, bread, rice, tomatoes, avocados, etc. I mean, anything's actually from here versus stuff that's imported. But the main reason why I'm talking about this is if you can look at the big picture and say, if foreigners get sick every time that they come here from almost anything, like how poor is our food? Or is it that we've been so conditioned to the food for so long that is it that we just can handle the vast amounts of bacteria, or is it that like other people are so used to eating certain types of food with nourishment? Like, you know, you can be the judge of that, but the key here is understanding that there's a certain quality of life that we have access to in the States, New York City, you know, DC, Philly, wherever else. But no matter what we want, we have to be in a state of focus about how we want to live our lives. And yeah, there's going to be certain types of quality food. There's going to be GMOs. There's going to be cloned meat that's already on the market. It's like been articles out there for on that. Like there's you know, non-organic organic food, meaning like stuff that was partially sprayed, and like, but oh, guess who sells all this other stuff? I mean, prior to prior to Amazon buying them, Whole Foods, you know. And it's not about how organic something is or not, right? It's more of what is my path to nutrition that I am thinking? What is my philosophy on how I'm going to consume? How much exercise will I get? Like we can take nutrition as the base, or we can take physicality as a base. Like, why is it that I'm 38 and I don't go outside anymore to like exercise or like, make time to play with my kids? I don't have kids again, but still. Or just doing something athletic. When was the last time that a woman, like if your woman is listening, when was the last time you sweated by yourself? Like you made yourself sweat. Not it was so hot outside, not I was wearing a sweater and like it was the heat and I moved around too much. No, like you literally working up your cardiovascular system and your heart rate enough to be able to make yourself sweat. So these types of things are, I guess you could say, the most imperative in when it comes to trying to draw a dialogue inside yourself, trying to find out how holistic can you be. And if there are people asking questions, I can answer more things, but in a nutshell, before I go on for like a few more minutes, the main thing that I really want to get at, even though I said all these things and like sometimes people say I go all the way around the world, is I want people to think about how much control you have as an individual. And yes, there might be many problems in the world. Yes, there might not be the most vast amounts of support and information out there. But the thing that matters most is having someone around you who is willing to understand. And holistically, you should look at the way and technology influences you, the way that people influence you, the way that, news and media, which is kind of a form of technology, but it's different. People consider technology somewhat their cell phone or their computer, but not necessarily the same way that they look at TV. So your circle of friends, your who you let your children play with, what type of foods do you typically shop for? Like there's like, for instance, even though it's far for the majority of us, I do live in Brooklyn, so maybe it's not as far, but places like the Park Slope Food Co-op, like they have a really good business model. Or like, you do volunteering. It's like, it works kind of like, what is it called? Like Sam's Club or something, where it's a members only type of place for like really healthy foods from local farmers. But yeah, there's alternatives out there if you use your mind and you let yourself get vulnerable enough. If you decide to look a little bit closer at the imbalances in your life, and holistically, as a woman and as a man, we have never been as individualistic as we are today in today's age. And that means our ancestors used to rely on people, ask questions, band together, do things to be in other people's favor. And in being in other person's favor, they would call on that favor, and that person can equally call on the favor for them. Building community, relying on community. These types of things were kind of essential parts to allowing things to have a lot more of a lot more substance in the state of survival. I just want to I actually talk about this a lot on social media, on one of my other Instagrams, my Moorish Instagram. But holistically, as a woman, raising a child alone is invalid. Raising a child with a spouse, whether you're co-parenting or not, is also invalid. So just because you have a man in the picture, that's not being holistic. Holistically, A man could rely on a circle of people in his community. A woman could rely on a circle of people in her community. And I used to like be like, maybe I'm being a little egotistical and I'm trying to go a little left, but I challenge you to go in New York and visit the various communities that are still here. Because I visited them here and there, but when I started doing reflecting over the pandemic, I noticed that the only people who weren't suffering due to the COVID policies and restrictions were all these communities. The Chinese community, and that's like down from Chinatown all the way to Flushing, the Russian community, the small Japanese community, they're a little bit of a different way, but yeah. The Middle Eastern community, it could be like Queens, like Astoria. The Korean communities, the Jewish communities, the Russian communities. I think I'm like kind of repeating myself because I'm like trying to think in sense of these nationalities. The Tibetan communities, yeah, the Dominican communities, not somewhat the Dominican communities, somewhat. And the only reason why I say it somewhat is because like the Spanish are a little bit closer than the average person. No, they're a little bit closer than the average like language speaker of a different nationality to the US government. And they've kind of been hijacked just like everybody else. But to the same degree, they kind of have a series of gatekeepers who kind of keep their people in line. Yeah, but that's without saying a lot. But but still, the Dominican community. And I would say the Dominican community versus everybody else, because the Puerto Rican community doesn't stick together like that in the same way. Maybe a little bit, but not in the same way as Dominicans do. Yeah. So anyway, as far as like places to touch and go to a Chinatown, go to a little Russian area, go to like Brighton Beach, or like Kings Highway or Flushing, all the way at the end of the 7 train. Look at the malls that they have. Look at the bakeries, and like now, go look inside the stores. It's only them shopping with each other. Why? Because they all live literally right around the corner from each other. And then that's pretty important because they shop with each other. And now go to Harlem, go to like what is it called? Jamaica Queens, go to Crown Heights. Like, yeah, you'll see us, but will you see us actually taking care of each other or running against each other? And there's a lot of this isn't fully our fault. It's the byproducts of us trying to hold ourselves together after the crack epidemic. And we're 3 generations in, and the reason why I say 3 generations, it's the generation who experienced it, and the kids who were born into that, and then the generation that came after them. So, but these are kind of pretty important things to think about, is why are these people able to hold their lives together? It's because they rely on each other. I forgot about the Indian community also. But yeah, this is super important, because when you think about and it's not to say these people are perfect by far, but when you think about why they have been able to come so far, barely speaking English, especially when you go to their neighborhoods, then what is it that's keeping them going? And a lot of them, it's patience. A lot of times it's knowing that there's a limitation, but deciding to rely on the other person. And then equally, the person who is being relied upon, they also know that if I at least do something to keep my word, these people will give back to me as well. And this is more than just the minor precepts of business. Business is a really good start for everybody, though, the exchange of funds and the resources. But even more so, like having somebody to watch your kid. Like you see that person, you see that same person open up a daycare center, like, and you take your kid there. Like you see that same person open up a bakery and you start to like shop there. Like, and it's in it, but the bigger part is that the illusion is that because I see somebody doing something, I have to go support them and I hope they support me. But the real thing is I go support them with accountability, and through accountability and question and honest commerce, then they know I can trust them, and I know they can trust me. And it's like it's a subtlety. And it sounds like I'm just talking about business, but holistically, it's the way that we eat, the way that we shop, it's the way that we live, it's a roof that we put over our heads. We need to start to get our own apartment buildings or renting from people, even if they're another minority. I mean, if it's a race, that they can see that we can rely on each other, and that there's nothing to really trade. But the the way that the Western medical system really holds our people prisoner, that the the way that a lot of people are subjugated by the insurance companies, by the colleges, and with the student loan debt, by um, credit card debt and mortgages, and there's a lot of ways where people feel helpless. But holistically, if you want to think about making things bigger, making things better, creating an ecosystem of people that you can depend on, and also knowing places that will also offer you the things that you want, it's about the spiritual journey and deciding to research and deciding to get a little bit closer to the things that you really want. And I have my journey, and your journey is going to look maybe completely different. Maybe it will involve going to the church. Maybe it will involve like finishing some kind of college degree before you can do something else. But at the end of the day, like, think about Mother Nature, think about what it takes in order to have a plant. I mean, have a plant in your house when plants belong outside. And like, can you keep that plant alive year round? Can you, if it does grow peppers or tomatoes or whatever, can you grow that in your house? Like, how many different sacrifices will you see yourself make, giving it the right sunlight, giving a little bit more space, changing the pot, putting more soil that's fresher inside of it, and removing the old dirt. You know, these little things about how we can take care of nature and commune with nature. It doesn't necessarily need to be some type of like trip to the Amazon or like going to Barbados or whatever. Like, we have literally nature all around us, and the closer that we can get to nature, the closer that we can understand ourselves. The way that we take care of our hair, like I even used to have a fro in my hair before. I mean, it's what I'm at now, but that's only hair cutting after 2 months.
Yeah.
But wait, let me finish. Oh no, wait, let me finish. I'm still talking. Right. So,
Well,
but okay, yeah, go ahead.
okay. So there's questions in the chat just to kind of go back to
Oh
what our
yeah, because
original topic is.
I was just talking
What?
because you just told me this. Well,
So
hold on, let me finish before. Okay,
mhm.
I'm just gonna before I finish my thought. Basically, when I was talking about hair, my hair now is right here after getting it kind of cut down to almost a fade in June, like slightly before my birthday, maybe like just like 2.5 months, and like re-nourishing my hair, and like I knew, when I was taking care of my hair, that I needed to be in touch with the divine feminine. So what I went back to was I went to a stylist who was, of course, she was a woman. She was saying, like, and like my hair used to be down to here, right? And I used to have a fro I was growing for a number of years, and I started doing twists and all the other stuff. But over the pandemic, I got really envious at how people were shaping their hair. And even though my hair was out to here, I knew that I wanted to get in touch with being more in control of my feminine. I didn't want to just have hair that was all over the place. So after going to the stylist, she told me that how damaged my hair was and how many things that I wasn't doing to take care of my roots and all these other things. So I decided to make the sacrifice of regrowing it just to be able to come in touch with a controlled sphere of my feminine, and understanding that, like, as a man, there's going to be plenty of things I'm going to forget about and then just not in my nature. But but holistically, in my own vulnerability, I can learn from other women who might have the information that I need to be able to take care of my own problems or my own desires, really, So, okay, you can go into the question. That was the only one to say.
Sure. I would just like you to just reintroduce yourself and your services, and then I have a question, which is, what is your definition of imbalance?
Whew. So, oh yeah. So, I'm Psussenes Narisha Bay. I'm a holistic doctor of yoga therapy. I predominantly deal with clients over the age of 40, all the way into their late 60s, who are looking to rehabilitate themselves through body, mind, and spirit. Everything from post-operation, this actually affects a lot of people, hip replacements, fibroid surgery, or people who are in need of surgery, helping them prevent the surgery, dealing with different illnesses that are happening inside the body and things of that nature. And then most of all, trauma relief, but everything kind of comes back to energy and trauma and things that were created as a result of malnourishment and poor circulation. So yeah, basically, in short, all diseases are curable. The body can do anything that we want it to, but we just have to set on the right path. And my definition of balance, I would say holistically, that balance is, let me show you something. Balance is somewhat like this. And yeah, I turned something on by accident. But yeah, balance is something like this, kind of like this pyramid. So the reason why I use the pyramid is because the pyramid is a representation of perfect balance. And this is actually a pyramid from Morocco, from like that's made out of fossils. But the main reason why I talk about the pyramid is because within the pyramid, the main thing about the pyramids in Egypt and Gaza, and the other 7 wonders of the world, if you can take those, is it's inconstructible. Like, we, meaning all the architects around the world, say, we don't know how to build this. Like, how did they build this? Like, and then how do they build these things so heavy, especially with the size of certain blocks on just the foundation, like, are the size of 2 to 3 people. And they would say, oh, they, like, no matter how many thousands of slaves or so they said, that actually helped build the pyramids in those ways. Like, they basically, with the cranes that we have, we can't even replicate a lot of the things. And I feel like true balance is like a pyramid, is because no one's one version of balance is going to be, one, conceivable, but two, conceivable to other people. Like, how are you able to do it? Because the thing is, the people who built the pyramids around the world, from the mound builders to Gaza, from the west all the way to the east, there are more pyramids in America than there are in other places around the world. But they knew that they knew a certain thing about reality, a certain holistic and spiritual science about reality and their own way of living during those time periods, that they were able to construct the things that they were able to make in the way and time period that they do. And when it comes to us, or even myself, I've realized that balance is both the epitome or utopian view and also the illusion, meaning that no matter how much I try to serve and say that balance, I can meet the maximum thing, I can only meet the maximum for my life at this moment. But 10 years from now, 2 years from now, 90 days from now, I might need completely different things, because we're only the real thing to really think about is Western civilization, money, currency, real estate, however many, like, no, the amount of education your kids have, they all actually don't matter. They're just series of other people's ideas. And the more that you realize that your own thoughts matter the most, and that your survival matters the most to you because it's your life, your type of balance matters the most because that might be what you need. Like, I have friends who, oh, like even just recently, like up until like a client I had a few days ago, all the way to like the beginning of the pandemic, they had to move out of the city. They're like, I'm going back home, or I got to go see my family or whatever. It's like, then like maybe a few years before, I'd be, oh, don't go. But then I was like, oh, that's what you need. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be gone. You can still pick up a phone call and you can connect to me if you want to. Or if I don't see you again, then like, I don't regret it, because every time that I saw you, I'm giving you the maximum amount of energy that I can give you. The more that we hold on to limitations, the more that balance is harder. The more that we hold on to the idea of abundance in ourselves and our ability to produce, our abundance within finite resources, meaning your friends only have X amount of hours in a day before they can spend time with you. Maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 8 hours, but they only have so much time. And you can look at the opportunity for like, and the appreciation for what the finite resources of the outside world can give you, or you can approach it with expectation. And like, the more that you're dissatisfied, the more that you think about uh, that reality needs to bend to your will, the harder that things are going to be. So, in terms of balance, the only thing that we have available to us is that what we hope to do and that what we're willing to arrive to. There's like meeting our own expectations, holding ourselves accountable, realizing that no matter how intelligent that we are, no matter how much of a good person that we are, that nobody can actually do anything for you that you won't do for yourself. And sometimes doing for self doesn't necessarily look like let's say getting all of the rent money even though you know you're behind on rent, or like let's say getting all of the money for to be able to pay for a car. Maybe you might need a cosigner. Maybe that's what really arriving at things looks like, because the world is built off of exchange or alchemy, or like the law of equivalent exchange. So the more that we give to the universe in the ways that we give it, the easier that we can balance, not only for our own lives, but within the ecosystem that we're a part of. Because what we do also matters to others as well. So our balance might look like 3 days of like fasting once a month, or it might look like fasting one day out of 365 days for where we're at in our life. And it's more about meeting your own needs and your own expectations, and realizing that you don't need anybody, but you choosing to have the people that you do have in your life on purpose, with a purpose. And not only people, but things and resources, forms of entertainment, technology, degrees of self-expression, and so on. So yeah, that answers anybody's question. I hope that I submit something to somebody.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing. We want to kind of wrap it up. So there's another question in the chat.
Uh-huh.
What kind of words of advice would you offer to someone seeking to make life changes? Yeah, that's the other question in the chat.
Okay, wait, what? So what's the question?
What words
Uh,
of advice would you offer to someone seeking to make life changes? And I think you
mm,
said something really hitting. You said, make it simple, something along those lines.
uh, I don't know what I said, but but I will say this, right? I made a lot of changes. I've even made vows that I haven't broken on like my different stages in life. And I would say more that if you're wanting to make a change, go back to observation. Do a lot of observation. Observation until you go mad. Observation, like not to the crazy point, but more of like to the boiling point of like you just like the more that you may seek um basically in a nutshell, you would be seeking inspiration to be your driving force to make change, because you can't necessarily change anything that you're not willing to be passionate about, because passion or anger are typically the breaking mold of habits. um but if you're not inspired, you're not really going to do it. So I don't sulk, but I go into deep observation anytime I want change. I just become more and more observant of the type of things that I want to see in my own life, and just like whether it's like listening to lectures on YouTube, or going to a physical lecture, or going to uh, going to places that inspire me, or going to places to eat, or looking. It doesn't mean like looking on Zillow at apartments, but it does mean like basically make yourself so uncomfortable with like through observing the things that you really want to see. Something I started to do over the pandemic is I unfollowed a lot of people um, that weren't related to my business, because I had a basically an artist page and a like Afrocentric page, and then my business page. But I wasn't putting really any of the followers onto the other two pages, and I had all these people that I had met out throughout the city pre-pandemic, during pandemic, like, and I just had them on my timeline. And I just at one point I saw some lecture, some TED talk, or some kind of motivational person on Instagram, or I think I was listening on whatever that talking app is. I can't even think about it. Anyways, yeah. But um I was listening, and I listened to this like little 90-second blurb of this guy saying something. It was from a review on an interview on a podcast, and he was basically talking about the simplicity of motivation, and that a lot of times people overcomplicate things because they want it to be they want the motivation to be bigger than themselves. And um and I don't even remember what the rest of what else said, but I just remember this moment. I was scrolling through my feed, and I saw some girl wearing some bikini, and another dude with like some in front of like some kind of Ferrari and something else. And I just started unfollowing people, and then I just started forwarding their pages to my artist page or to my other page, or they're just not following them all together. And then I started following people who are way buffer than me. I was like 6-pack, 8-pack, like, like not roided out, but like, and then I started following Olympians, and, people who are breaking records and goals, and, to whatever degree. Of course, they're in their own lane of life. But I realized that not only with the men, but also the women that I follow, I'm programming myself, especially when especially when I'm on a certain page. So when I was seeking the inspiration through observation, and I decided to throw myself to the lions, and like, you know, maybe in the first maybe 30, not even 30, 15 days, I was kind of like passively like, man, why did I follow these people? Like my followers is imbalanced, and now like, I'm trying to run a business here and all this other stuff. But then slowly but surely I got more used to seeing it, and then I got more inspired, and then because of the algorithm and all the other stuff, I started to see different things. And I still don't regret it to this day. And I think it's more like, I think I've been doing it for the last 2.5 years, and um, I didn't even see the subconscious effects that it made on me, but I know for a fact that my life is kind of changed for the better, that to the point to where I can decide on when I want to get influenced. And I watch movies and documentaries and YouTube videos and listen to music a lot more intentionally. So in a nutshell, make like go into a deep place of observation and become more intentional with how you live life. Even if it's just cutting some stuff out, maybe it doesn't look like you're taking any new actions, but just fill your day with nothing to do, and then just find something motivational that where you would like your life to be. Even if as little as like, I want to go to the gym, maybe just going to and just like watching people at the gym, like, just in like find a lane of inspiration, because it's not about becoming perfect. I think that was the first thing that used to hurt me the most, is trying to achieve a goal and thinking that I had to become that person and respond to everybody's needs. And then I realized it's more about being honest with what I'm capable of and what I need, and kind of feeding and nurturing myself on a daily basis, and holding people accountable when they don't meet my own needs, and saying like, it's okay, but I'm not going to use any more of my extra time to do that. But yeah, they say idle hands are the devil's playground, but just because you have idle time doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. You can make it useful if you just become more intentional. So, and that's it. I know I've talked a lot, but
Thank you for sharing. And
yeah.
can you just say again, what are some of the services you provide and where people can find you?
So I'm under Pain Solutions NYC as far as my my holistic stuff. And then yeah, then I have also an artist page and an Afrocentric page, but those are for other things. But Pain Solutions NYC. But the primary thing I do is rehabilitation. Whenever I work with people, it's usually a 3-hour session. Um, and yeah, then I basically help with everything from like chronic stagnation in the muscles to like, allowing like informing women about yoni work and yoni steams, or telling men about like pelvic floor health, or like gut health, or heart health. Like like a lot of people under the age of 40, they already have a lot of things in their basket of like, tricks. But people over 40, what I realize is like, they're the future. And if without the people over 40, the people under 30, we're not going to know what to do. So, because they're the epitome of the information that can save the planet, because the youth are kind of out of control. So the but everything from rehabilitating after surgery, rehabilitating um after like, a divorce or heartbreak, or you know torn meniscus. It could be anything. I'm more of unlocking the human potential and showing people on how they can rehabilitate and recover and become the best version of themselves. And people see me closer to how they see a physical therapist, an acupuncturist, or something. So when you're rehabilitating, you see people over the course of a few months, as opposed to um, getting a quick fix. I don't do quick fixes. So peace.
And you do
That was a lot of
nutritional
information. Thank
and
you. I'm going to try
and
to
you
take this recording and put it on my Instagram somewhere.
and you do nutritional counseling as well.
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, nutritional counseling, I do also, but I know that the mind controls the body, and without habits, nutrition, one, doesn't go anywhere, but two, nutrition can't reach where it needs to go. So physicality is actually the base foundation for basically reoxygenating or basically removing oxidative stress from organs. And the more that you rehabilitate people along the way, what I've understood is that I can help people more when their body is at the most best physically open state, as opposed to telling them about nutritional supplements or certain foods to eat, because they could literally be amplifying the possibility or taking it at a snail's pace when they really need it in a truckload. You know what I mean? So yeah. But if there's any more questions.
Well, thank you so much for taking this
Yeah.
time to share. I truly appreciate this. So everyone watching can follow him on Instagram at Pain Solutions NYC. That's Pain Solutions NYC. And
They also, if they look at my I have a documentary. I mean, it's not to say it's not that, but I created it back in like I think 2018 or something like that. But the point of the documentary, I mean, the point is that if you, I mean, outside of my documentary, I have like examples of my massage on my page, and as far as the actual type of body work that I do. But I don't do massage. I do more rehabilitative type massage or yoga massage. And if you look at my bio, then there's like my website and all that stuff. So that'll kind of clear up any questions if you have any. So,
okay.
but the best way to contact me is by sending me a message there, and then we can follow up from there.
Okay.
But I work all over. So, whether in like near the Metro North or in Brooklyn or wherever else, I can travel. So, or we can just do a phone consultation.
Okay. Or you come to the Bronx.
Yeah, definitely the Bronx. I know it's like the back of my hand now.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So thank you very much. And for everyone watching, thank you for tuning into Transformation Tuesday. And I appreciate everyone's flexibility. And for everyone, as always, when I'm closing, if I just want to say, if no one has told you, I'd just like to give you a reminder that we are all a spark of the divine.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.
All right, peace.
Okay, peace.
See everybody.